Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on Elite Academy. Today we have taken a question which was again there was in news and it has been asked recently by UPSC in the CDS examination which was conducted on 10th April 2022. So these kind of questions become very important because this is not only from the current affairs but it is also a conceptual question which we should know, and especially with respect to the theme which has been recurring in exams like civil services again and again. So UPSC has focus area for such key terms. The question is, the concept of fallback liability recently in the news is in relation to what? The first statement is central government grants to states. Definitely you can, if you don't know the answer, we will think, yeah, it can be one of the option, right option. B, business of e-commerce companies, it can be. C, recapitalization of public sector banks. Yes, a lot of news related to NPA and many things were happening. Merger of banks is happening. So D is merger of small banks with big banks. So if you look at the options, all the options have been crafted so beautifully that even if we don't know the answer and if we want to mark the answer, our gut feeling will say, yes, any one of these I can mark and this will be right. But my suggestion will be that if you don't know the answer, don't get trapped by such temptations, because these questions are there to trap you if you don't know. However, these informations, they are popular because of the issues with which they are related to. So if we are following the current affairs properly, sincerely, then we can easily mark the right option. Okay. So what is the answer? The answer is, it is related to business of e-commerce companies. Now let's understand what is fallback liability. So basically in 2021, consumer protection e-commerce amendment rules were drafted, and government has defined there about fallback liability. And it is the liability of the marketplace e-commerce entity. So any entity is there which is e-commerce entity where the sellers are registered with such entity, and when such sellers they fail to deliver goods or the services ordered by a consumer due to negligent conduct, omission or commission of any act by such seller, then it is called as the fallback liability. So if they are not able to fulfill their duties and liabilities because of neglect, omission and commission, then there has to be an accountability, and accountability should be fixed on such sellers. So it is with respect to a seller which is registered with the e-commerce entity. So if you now again read the question, the concept of fallback liability recently in news was B, the business of e-commerce companies, and it has been notified under Consumer Protection Rules 2021. And why these Consumer Protection e-commerce rules 2021? It has come under the purview of Consumer Protection Act 2019. So in 2019, we have come up with the Consumer Protection Act, about which we are going to discuss in detail. But why? Why Consumer Protection Act 2019? Let's have a look. Today, we are living in a digitized world where digitization has provided easy access, a large variety of choices, convenient payments, mechanisms where improved services are being provided. Rather, shopping has become a convenient way where just at the click of button we are able to order anything in the world and it is coming to our doorstep. However, there are associated challenges related to consumer protection. It can be with respect to who is responsible for the frauds, what about the defects, what about the grievances, what about the consumer rights. So we came up, the government of India has come up with Consumer Protection Act 2019, and basically it is in that direction to safeguard the rights of the consumers by establishing authorities and taking care of timely and effective administration and settlements of disputes and grievances. So let's have a look at the provisions and the details in the next slides. So first, let's have a look at the rights of a consumer. Jago Graha Jago. So this is a very famous slogan, and here it is asking us about asserting our rights as a consumer. Okay, so as a consumer, we have right to be protected. That is right to safety. against the marketing of goods, products or services which can be hazardous to life and property. So we have a right to safety. The second right is right to be informed. We have a right to be informed about what? About quality, quantity, purity, standard of the goods, products or services, as the case may be. Basically, it is to protect the consumer against unfair trade practices. So we have a right to be informed about the quality standards, potency, purity, or anything. Take the third right, that is right to choose. Why we are discussing it in detail? Because sometimes UPSC can give that these are the rights, which among them are one of the rights, or whether they are covered under the consumer protection, they are the rights of the consumers or not under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Then what are we going to mark? So remember it: right to safety, right to be informed, right to choose. We have right to choose. Basically, we should have accessibility to variety of goods, products or services at competitive price. So we should have right to choose. Right to be heard. If some problem is going on, we should have, or for that matter, consumers' interest should be given a due consideration, and at appropriate fora it should be addressed. So we have right to be heard. If there is any grievance, then right to seek redressal is also one of the right. If we are the victim of unfair trade practices or restrictive trade practices, or in any form the exploitation of consumer is happening, then we have right to seek redressal. Also, one of the right is a right to consumer education. But at the same time, we have to act responsibly. So here you can see the act of we have to act responsibly, which includes recycling, which includes we should not pollute, we should segregate our waste, that is wet and dry categories. We should also clean our surroundings, and we should use the organic material for composting. So these are the rights, but at the same time, the government is asking us to act responsibly. Okay, so these were the rights. Now we will discuss in detail about few other things. Let's have a look. Now let's discuss about the Consumer Protection Act 2019. So Consumer Protection Act 2019 basically has been introduced by Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution. Yes, so we have a separate Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Under that, Department of Consumer Affairs is there, which will take care of the Consumer Protection Act or for the implementation of the consumer rights. So it will be taken care by the Department of Consumer Affairs. So Consumer Protection Act 2019 has come up with many provisions giving more power to the consumers. So first of all, we should know that there was an act which was of 1986. So Consumer Protection Act 2019 has replaced that Consumer Protection Act 1986, basically to provide timely administration and settlement of consumer disputes. So more focus has been given on the grievance redressal and efficiency. So maybe you can say that it is one aspect of good governance or efficient governance. Okay, so here if you see, there are 6-7 provisions which has been written. The new act empowers with so many provisions about empowering or protecting the rights of the consumers. So the first one is Consumer Protection Council. So under this act, there is a provision that central government has to establish Central Consumer Protection Council. Basically, it will be an advisory body on consumer issues. Okay, and this will be headed by Union Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, with Minister of State as the vice chairperson and 34 other members from different fields. So you have to remember that it will be headed by the Union Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. And the tenure of this Consumer Protection Council will be of 3 years. Okay, and this is about the Consumer Protection Council. Rest of the points like consumer dispute redressal mechanism provision has been given, so that we are going to discuss in detail. Mediation, they have come up with the mediation of alternative dispute resolution mechanism, where mediation as a step has been taken, can be utilized. Product liability, e-commerce has been included for the first time under consumer protection. and penalty for adulteration and spurious goods has been also taken care. So we'll discuss them one by one. Now let's have a look at other provisions. Consumer Protection Act has also mentioned about the establishment of Central Consumer Protection Authority, that is CCPA, Central Consumer Protection Authority. What will be the objective? To promote, protect and enforce the rights of the consumers. So here the CCPA is empowered with a lot of things. They can take suo motu actions, they can recall the products, they can order reimbursement, or they can order to discontinue the unfair trade practices and even misleading advertisements. So remember it, misleading advertisement was not earlier covered under our Consumer Protection Act 1986. It didn't include the online misleading advertisements, but now the online misleading advertisements have been covered under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Okay, CCPA, that is Central Consumer Protection Authority, can also impose penalty, and it will have its own investigation wing. Remember it, investigation wing to conduct independent inquiry or any kind of investigation into consumer laws violation. So this CCPA is one of the important body authority which will take care of the interest of the consumers. So this has been introduced. Next, Consumer Protection Act is also talking about product liability. So for the first time it is happening in India. Product liability is basically a provision which will deter the manufacturers or the service providers if they are delivering any kind of defective products, or their services is not complete, deficient service is there. Okay, so basically here the manufacturer or the product service provider or the product seller will now have to be responsible to compensate for injury or damage caused by defective products or deficiency in services. If they are not able to provide it or they are not able to meet the standards, then they have to be responsible. They have to provide compensation. That's why it is called as product liability. Okay, and it will also include e-commerce platforms. So this is another empowerment for the consumers. Next, we have the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, the second point, of where the process of mediation for the early settlement of cases has been also given permission or has been included. Next, with respect to simplified dispute resolution, we have a state and district commission can now review their own orders. Earlier that was not possible. Empowerment of consumer commission to enforce their orders. Okay, so these are the provisions which has been added. Let's have a look at other provisions. The Consumer Protection Act is also calling for provisions for the unfair trade practices on e-commerce platforms. So first let's understand what is unfair trade practice. It can be anything like selling deceptive, using deceptive practices for providing the services, or not even not issuing proper cash memo or bill for the services, and the goods sold can also come under the unfair trade practices. Next can be refusing to withdraw or taking back or discontinuing the defective goods. Like let's say I'm a producer, and if I'm the service provider, I have provided some defective goods or defective product, and if I'm refusing to withdraw it, that is also unfair trade practice. Okay, and if let's say I'm a producer and I'm not refunding the consideration taken thereof within the time period stipulated in the bill, or within the 30 days if there is no such provision in the bill. So let's say in the bill, if the provision is not mentioned, then also within 30 days they are liable to give refunds or withdraw the product. But even if they are not doing it, that also comes under unfair trade practices. So basically this Consumer Protection Act 2019 has rules to prevent the unfair trade practices, and now it is also including e-commerce platforms under its purview. So that is one of the empowerment which is there for the consumers in the field, in the market. Why are we discussing in detail? Because these keywords, these key terms, what has changed from the previous act, what has been introduced, will be asked by UPSC. They will focus there. Okay. And why e-commerce is important? Because e-commerce has been witnessing tremendous growth. We only, let's say you or me, just analyze how our pattern was with respect to buying the things 2 to 3 years or 4 years, 5 years back. And now what are we doing? We have easily adapted this e-commerce, or due to pandemic, now we are going, we have adopted the cashless or digitized marketing. Okay, and e-commerce market is growing tremendously, and Indian e-commerce market is expected to grow USD 200 billion by 2026. Yes, US dollar 200 billion by 2026. It is our e-commerce market in India is expected to grow, right? So we need certain kind of protection. So e-commerce entity, they have to provide information relating to return, refund, grievance redressal, even country of origin they have to mention. Okay, and e-commerce platform should acknowledge the receipt of any consumer complaint within 48 hours, as it has been written as the second point. And as the third point, you can see redressal of complaint should be done within 1 month from the date of receipt. Okay. So remember this, that time-bound redressal mechanism has been emphasized again and again. And if the manufacturer or the service provider is failing to do so, then their license can be suspended up to 2 years in the case of first conviction, and cancellation of license for subsequent convictions. Okay, so these were the important points which we should know. Other than these, e-filing mechanism has been brought, like earlier e-filing was not there, now e-filing has been brought. So let's have a look with respect to the differences. So on the left hand side we have Consumer Protection Act 1986, on the right hand side we have Consumer Protection Act 2019. With respect to regulator, what has changed? Earlier there was no separate regulator, but now we have a separate regulator, that is CCPA, Central Consumer Protection Authority. With respect to consumer court, earlier the complaint could be filed in the consumer court where the seller's office is located. Seller, let's say the seller is in Haryana and they are registered with their office is registered in nearby area only. You could go and file your complaint there only in that's consumer court of that area. But no, now it is not like that. Complaint can be filed in consumer court where the complainant resides or what. Let's say I'm residing in Tamil Nadu and I have ordered something from Haryana. So it will not matter. I can file a complaint in the consumer court in Tamil Nadu itself. With respect to product liability, we have discussed. Earlier in 1986 Act, there was no provision. Consumer could approach a civil court, but not consumer court. But now in 2019 Act, what has changed? Consumer can seek compensation for harm caused by product or service. I have already discussed on the previous slides. With respect to pecuniary jurisdiction, the limits have been increased for district, state and national level. So you can have a look. E-commerce, earlier it was not included. Now all the rules of direct selling extend to e-commerce as well. Earlier there was no mediation cell, there was no legal provisions for mediation, but now court can refer the settlement through mediation as well. So these were the important points which I wanted to discuss. However, we started with fallback liability, we went to e-commerce, we went to Consumer Protection Act, then rights, then different features which has been included, and now we are discussing what has changed. So this is it with respect to this topic. Now we have another topic as well. I have kept another topic for today. Okay, so today I wanted to discuss this question as well. I had kept that, okay, we will discuss. So this question was from Science and Tech. It is related to microorganisms, which UPSC loves a lot. But since it's already 19 minutes video, so we will do one thing. We will take this question tomorrow. We will discuss it tomorrow so that the video's length will be not too long and you can revise it effectively while watching it. So we'll take this question tomorrow and we will discuss in detail. And that's it for today. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. You have got the good information, new information, but do revise it, because these are the information which UPSC is going to highlight about changes, new introduction. And don't take any topic at their face value that, okay, UPSC cannot ask this question. No, this question is too much. So don't analyze it. You are preparing for the exam and you should have information. That's it. Whatever is mentioned, whatever is happening around you, you should know it. So do revise it and take care. We'll meet again in the next video. Have a good day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.